Better out than in, part 2. Being a southerner, I was surprised to learn that a running buffet didn't actually mean that people ran round and round the buffet. No, it was more a perpetual motion, a constant swirling of chatting and nibbling and eavesdropping. They also represent Yorkshire's hospitality at its finest, with enough cold cuts to feed an army. Irene and Reg had pulled out all the stops for their Julie's big day. Irene weren't about to let those old gossips have their day. It was an impressive display. Yards of sausage rolls, crinkled cut beetroot, vol au vents, and those little silver skin cocktail onions and garlic bread, very haute cuisine. And in the middle of the table was a large white porcelain stand on which sat a magnificent large pork pie, a stand pie. A lot of store were put by a decent stand pie. As the crush for food unfolded, nobody seemed to notice the pack of feral dogs trotting round Buffet, whipping chicken drumsticks off paper plates and shredding discarded serviettes. There were several dogs under the table gnawing on chicken bones and any bits of stand pie that dropped their way. Concealed by the scalloped-edged damask, they remained there throughout the entire reception. They were all ugly-coloured mutts, brindle-coloured northern hybrids with hangdog expressions and terrible breath. We never knew who they belonged to or where they'd come from, these canine gate crashes, but their presence at the reception added a certain frisson. Family and friends gathered round that buffet, admiring the spread and congratulating the bride's parents on their big day. "Oh, Irene, you have done your Julie proud. Ain't she lovely? Hey, now that there's what I call a right good spread, Reg. Can't wait to have a slice of that stand pie. Looks greatly. Aye, it's a good pie, is that. Knows his meat, does our Reg." Reggie had set up his cinefilm and tripod at one end of this large room, from where he had a panoramic sweep of the running buffet and guests. He never did quite get the hang of filming, asking everyone to stand still and smile. There are acres of silent film footage of the assembled wedding party, all standing rigid with forced smiles, clutching their warm pints and their handbags. Reg was unrepentant. "I don't want a blur on." After the reception had been underway for a good hour or so, Julie became increasingly hot and bothered in all her finery. Well, the room was warm, what with all the people and dogs milling about. But it was more to do with the corset which Irene had insisted her daughter wear under her frock, to conceal any signs she might be in family way. Finally, on the cusp of a swoon, Julie took a moment to lean on the wall over by Auntie Mary, whose hefty bulk were propped up in a straight-backed chair. She wore a solid brown hat plonked over her hairnet. No jaunty angle here. Despite having a face like back at bus and a deep rasping voice from her 40-a-day habit of rough-cut shag, her finer qualities was that she was very kind and had a marvellous dirty laugh. As she attempted to shift her bulk from one cheek to the other, Auntie Mary looked up at Julie. "Yeah, love, whip that corset off in bog and stick it in me handbag after. You'll be right then," she whispered. Julie stole away to the ladies' toilet where, with a little help from me, she took that corset off and let out a big sigh of relief. Holding the corset in the folds of her voluminous frock, She carried it back discreetly across the hall and handed it to Auntie Mary, who shoved it down into a sturdy leather handbag. A little while later, Malk took a seat next to Auntie Mary, wiping sweat from his starched collar as he supped his fourth pint. "Oh, you look hot, love," said Auntie Mary. "Here, have me tissue." Delving into her copious bag, Mary pulled out not a hanky, but the corset. Unaware of her faux pas, she waved it in front of Malk for all and sundry to see, offering it to him to wipe the back of his neck. Suddenly, one of the feral dogs darted between Auntie Mary's knees, leapt into the air, grabbing the corset out of her hand in its clenched teeth as it pelted round the room, shaking it violently. Heck! Well! Chortling a deep throaty laugh, Auntie Mary started coughing hard. Heck! She thumped her chest with her fist, coughing it up before rolling a fag. "That'll shift it." The rest of the wedding reception went off without incident as the running buffet was pushed to one side and the lights dimmed for the evening disco. The old aunties were happily ensconced in gossip in the corners of the hall as they sorted out who had said what to whom and when. Only a few crumbs remained on the great white porcelain stand, as several children fizzed around the hall in a circuit of cake and pop and throwing up. Most of the men had slurped back off down to the bar downstairs, leaving the women to reminisce on the day over the tea urn. Oh, hadn't it been a grand service? Oh, Mrs. Smith had done flowers lovely. They make a handsome couple, Irene. The bridesmaids' frocks were a triumph. Oh, it were a beautiful spread, Reg. Well done, lad. The feral dogs had all but disappeared as mysteriously as they had arrived, save for 2 or 3 asleep under the table with a pile of chicken bones. Oh, and somewhere in their midst lay a dishevelled corset. It had been a lovely wedding. 6 months later, a beautiful boy was born to Julie and Malk. Irene was thrilled, of course, although, as she said to me when I visited, well, the doctors tried to hold it back, but it were no good. It had to come out. "Better out than in," laughed the relieved mum.